100 Men versus One Gorilla. Everything you need to know by Casual Geographic.
100 Men versus One Gorilla is just the newest online debate brought to you by people that have way too much time on their hands. And I'm no better, because here I am making a video about it. Because it's quickly gone from silly Twitter talk to what has to be a massive joke that I'm not in on. What's clear is one side is getting drastically overrated, while people obviously aren't taking the other side seriously. Plus, I love animals and arguments, so if you're looking for a video to eat your lunch with, or to be the soundtrack of your commute home, I'm going to break down the question you probably didn't care about in the first place, and by the end, you'll wonder how this was ever even a question. So here.
I was under the impression that the gorilla just wins hands down. Like, I think it's no contest.
Here's the full truth of whether 100 unarmed men could beat one prime silverback gorilla. But first, we gotta understand what force of nature we're up against. Now, I do have a couple recent videos on gorillas, so to not repeat myself too much, I do advise that you check those out for further context. But basically, everything we thought about gorillas back in the day was wrong. They're giant, non-violent, fart-happy pacifists, and the most dangerous thing about them is they can misunderstand regular human actions as an act of war. So while, yeah, if you smile at a silverback enough times, he eventually will put beats on you like a Cherokee drum, most times a gorilla is just worried about the 6,000 calories he eats a day. And thank the stars for that. Gorillas are built like the developer had something to prove. They took the human model and said, drag to resize. The result is an alpha ape with a stronger bite force than a grizzly, allegedly, hands that can crush a crocodile's skull, allegedly, and just strength that we really have no way to truly comprehend. That man fully didn't plan to get casually ragdolled, but plans are always subject to change when you're around the prime ape. Gorillas might default to peace, but life is multiple choice. The question is, what kind of carnage comes when they choose violence? It's hard to imagine what a fully malice-motivated gorilla can do because it takes a lot for them to get to that point. The first phase of conflict involves using body language and gestures to send a message before hands even have to be thrown. Because for an animal that can spend over 12 hours a day eating, wasting calories on fights is poor resource management. The second phase of escalation usually involves pushing, grappling, and screaming in really short bursts. Gorillas fight the way they fuck. What I mean is, the phase they run are like how they're hung. Not long at all. Because again, most times gorillas don't actually want to fight. But what about...
I mean, it's interesting to think about how, say, like modern society kind of has a very deterrence-focused mindset, and this is not necessarily from a militaristic standpoint, right? But think about Karen, you know, wanting to speak to someone's manager, right? Their first instinct is not to go out swinging, right? Their instinct is to try to get you to what you want to do, or what they want to do, and then, you know, if that doesn't work, they'll go up the chain of command and they'll try to go to management. It's aggressive, don't get me wrong, but on both sides we have deterrence from the workplace because, oh my god, this is an actual Karen trying to get her way. This is also Karen being like, look, I will do X, I will do Y, and I will do Z, but, you know, she's not realistically going to throw a punch or anything like that. So that's a smaller example, right? But think about in your day-to-day life how people will try to acknowledge a conflict being really anything, right? Someone calling you a jagoff in traffic is a form of conflict. Generally, the first thing is not to go out swinging, right? Generally, it's more along the lines of acknowledging the conflict, trying to de-escalate the conflict, trying to, maybe get loud, try to intimidate the other party into not being in the conflict. So it's very deterrence focused is what I'm trying to get across. And it's really fascinating to watch this in the animal kingdom as well.
When they do. Yeah, that would be phase 3, and that usually happens when two silverbacks throw down for control of a group. Losing such would mean losing the 3 Fs: food, family, and the FCC won't let me finish, but states can make these fights to the death, and here's where we can see what gorillas are truly capable of. I found a research paper that detailed the injuries sustained in gorilla-on-gorilla fights, and based on that, you see a pattern. Those teeth are for more than just undressing trees, and losers are often found with lacerations and puncture wounds all over the body. And unlike a leopard, which leaves small puncture wounds, the canines of a gorilla cause large gaping tears in victims. Even if the gorilla's bite strength has been exaggerated, which we will get into, even lowballing them puts them at the level of a hyena. One gorilla named Inshuti had his foot completely crushed, with the tips of his fingers and ear bitten off. Gorillas also use their arms, not really to punch, but to use as battering rams, and they've also been known to pull chunks of hair out with their hands. So safe to say, a gorilla's stiff arm to the back would crack your constitution like a glow stick, and could dislocate or break human bones by accident. And with many victims also recorded with bite wounds to the face, you'd probably be able to unlock your iPhone from 20 feet away after a gorilla puts jaws on you. So what chance would an army of humans have against a 500-pound berserker? Well, hot take, gorillas have been drastically overrated in many ways. First is fighters. Gorillas aren't efficient fighters, they're more physical brawlers and grapplers, and with everything I've said, most fights last anywhere from a couple seconds to 1 to 2 minutes at the most.
I mean, that's generally any fight as well, though, realistically. As someone who's done SCA, as someone who enjoys sword combat, look, if you're going beyond a certain period of time, something is happening there, right? Reasonably, I mean, let's just use rapier and or longsword, right? Generally, you're going to make your cuts, you're going to make your thrusts, and it's going to be over in several seconds, right? Reasonably so, especially if you can take control of the situation. 1 to 2 minutes if both participants in that sparring match are of decent skill level, if they know what they're doing, if they know how to reposition, control themselves, right? What does they control themselves using? Breathing, back being straight. Something I'm actually really bad at. I like to hunch over. Being able to place their feet appropriately. Passing steps. Keeping at least 3 lines of defense on yourself. Right. Like, sure, we can go longer, but the minute to 2 minutes I would argue is a rarity. Now the exception is when like people are playing hyper defensive. So in SCA it was sword and case effectively. So think like getting just like a stick as your offhand, right? Not like a, how do I word it? Like a smaller staff and your offhand that you kind of hold like towards the middle. You're not using it as a sword, but you're kind of using it as a blocking implement, or you can hold it from the end. Like the actual like case or sheath of a sword also would kind of do. It's a more defensive thing. You have two implements. One is offensive, the other is going to be a more defensive implement, right? Those things can go on for minutes, but that's because in itself that format using sword and case is generally going to be a more defensive format, and there's going to be ways of even if you just take your fist at a 90-degree angle, right, and then just twist it 90 degrees. Now imagine kind of like a Darth Maul lightsaber, the blades coming out from each end of your hand effectively. How much area that covers, then you can start to see why so many the thrust strikes, etc., get repelled, deflected, just sent off careening off to the the side. It becomes a war of attrition at that point. So, I mean, this tracks for what I do. I mean, like fights rarely last, sparring matches, I guess I should say, they rarely last multiple minutes in length. Something happens at that point. Either it's such a skilled environment, or you're playing so defensive that part of your game plan is to actually wear your opponent out.
Also, as strong as gorillas are, their strength has been overrated. There are some animals that just get more and more OP the more people talk about them. Chimps have been said to have the strength of 8 men when really it's closer to 1.5. It's just that they're stronger in all the ways that can kill you. And grizzly bears are already big enough, but then you got people claiming they could decapitate a full-grown moose with one swipe. Now, what idiot would say that? And this debate has people swearing a gorilla would rip a whole man in half like a phone book with nary a sweat. I knew the gorilla propaganda peaked when this was an actual debate. Dr. Strange could conjure up 14 million realities. You won't find one where a plus-size protein-packing primate can do anything to a full-strength grizzly bear taking him seriously. Especially since there's a much smaller predator known to give gorillas problems. Gorillas have been documented getting preyed on by African leopards. Even with jungle leopards being bulkier due to less competition, that's still an at most 180-pound cat past tensing Optimus Prime. Now let me be fair, these are rare and leopards usually go for hoofed animals, wild pigs, and monkeys. Gorillas are actually too big and too social to be a regular on the grocery list, so it sounds like my whole point is trash. But that same paper listing gorilla on gorilla violence also showed the aftermath of leopard attacks. In those reports, all leopard victims took bite wounds to the head and most of the arms, with lacerations localized about the neck and claw marks on the trunk. So even though it is rare and a one-on-one between a silverback and a leopard might murk both, if a gorilla can struggle with less than 200 pounds of predator, a 900-pound deratio would give Harambe a bunkmate. Also, against 100 men, there are some very real issues that could be game over for the gorilla. The big one is endurance. Gorillas are dangerously close to being hot girl fit. They're best using explosive bursts of energy, not sustained strain over a long period of time, and a fight against 100 humans would likely last hours. Which is really bad considering compared to us, gorillas have poor temperature control. Gorillas don't have as many sweat glands as humans, and if we're talking about mountain gorillas, the thick fur would make it a 101 versus 1. The men, and the risk of heat stroke. That is if the ape doesn't just have a heart attack. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in gorillas in zoos, and 70% of male gorillas in zoos suffer from heart disease that'll past tense them prematurely. Now
I mean, is this, because it sounds like this is in zoos, so that would clearly be in captivity, right? Where animals in general, a lot of them do have issues in captivity, right? I think orcas get very aggressive in captivity. Like, there's certain challenges for when you're in captivity. So I guess it is definitely a talking point. It depends if this is in a vacuum only in captivity or majorly majorly in captivity. Excuse me, can't speak today. So I think it is still a good talking point, though.
That might just apply to zoo gorillas, but it's still a factor. Another is the very temperament of the gorilla is highly non-confrontational. They're more likely to run away than run a fade. But
okay, to be fair, but against a goose, that's kind of fair.
most importantly, the brawling, grappling build is not a good combat style against multiple enemies. We know that because there's another African predator that's been giving gorillas hell, and you may not have even realized it. And it's weird because for a while, gorillas and chimpanzees seem like they were on good terms. They've been recorded foraging together, and they'll even have their version of primate playdates. That all changed when the chimps started chimping. A couple years ago in Luongo National Park, scientists witnessed a gang of 18 chimps jump a gorilla family of 5. That's 3 females, 1 baby, and a silverback. The turf war lasted an hour, and even with the silverback apparently testing ragdoll physics, throwing chimps in the air, and even managing to injure 3. Eventually, he was surrounded and chased off by 9 chimps. The adults got away, but the chimps managed to snatch the baby gorilla of the group, which was promptly eaten. The second attack involved 27 chimpanzees and 7 gorillas, and this time, the silverback made a business decision and immediately climbed out of the trees and fled the scene. Yes, comparing chimps to humans is comparing durians to jackfruit. The moral here is the one gorilla can not only be overwhelmed, but neutralized by numbers. Because if there's one thing that's being dangerously underrated, it's the power of friendship. Don't laugh, I'm serious. If you remember this picture, then you know this was the 100 Men, 1 Gorilla of 2018. It's pretty self-explanatory. Everything here is coming for your life, except the 2 you picked to run defense for you. And I'm just gonna kill the suspense. If one of those picks isn't the 10,000 rats, you have no idea how big 10,000 is. Add eagles for aerial support, and the rest of the field would have over 200 rats to deal with each. And it's cause the power of plurality is one of the most broken strategies in nature. Mobbing refers to an anti-predator behavior where prey animals approach, harass, and
poor owl.
sometimes attack their own predator. It's how one animal can shift an almost impossible matchup in their favor. One hyena to a lion is a chew toy. Add 20 and it's a life lesson. Pilot whales have been on record chasing orcas out of high competition areas and even actively following the sounds of orca hunts. There's plenty of examples of weaponized unity in nature, but probably my favorite case of what's akin to a mob happens off the coast of South Africa, where fur seals have to risk their spot on the census every time they check the fridge, because the seals can't go out for groceries without the chance of running into the biggest predatory fish on Earth. Every year, great white sharks will gather around fur seal nurseries and snatch any inexperienced pups. The problem is so many sharks show up that a seal can dodge one great white right into the jaws of another.
Right.
You've seen this movie before, but there's an alternate ending. Scientists have recorded fur seals squatting up into one giant group and using their numbers to turn on the sharks closing in. And as the mob gets bigger, the seal force gets more confident, leading to them escorting the 20-foot assault submarines back out to sea. So with all this, now it doesn't seem like a stretch to favor 100 men over just one gorilla. You could argue that the seals and the other mob merchants aren't actually getting physical with their final boss. That's true, everyone's asking if 100 men could off a gorilla, no one's asking how. Well, that's why I'm here. But first, obligatory, don't try this on a gorilla, or at least don't blame me for the consequences if you do.
Yeah.
In a fight against a simian weighing a shack and a half, it's all about attacking the weak points, and a gorilla's weak points are the same as ours. Eyes, throat, mouth, and for measure, the jewels of the South. It's all about delivering damage that actually matters, and to do that, someone would have to perform the Draymond Green special and go for the eyes and blind him. Someone else would have to suffocate the supersized simian, either by bear hugging his windpipe, which only Tarzan backpacking plot armor can do, or by shoving your entire arm down his throat. And since you're already negotiating your arm elbow deep in esophagus, you'd also have to pull the gorilla's tongue out. I call that the leopard method, because a 73-year-old once soloed an attacking leopard by reaching into its mouth and ripping out the leopard's liquor.
Fair
Speaking
enough.
of grab and pull, someone would have to be elected to perform Draymond's final smash and go.
I feel like some of those are definitely accidents in sports, but I feel like those are definitely like, I don't know, like even in things I've done with, like, you know, medieval Renaissance combat, stuff like that. I mean, you can't do stuff like that. I mean, sure, accidents are gonna happen. Sure, maybe you aim a little low on accident, right? And not quote unquote accident, like yeah, you maybe accidentally aim a little low or something. Or you step in a way in which you maybe lead with your knee, and sure, accidents can happen, but like, especially in a sports environment like that, I don't see how that's not going to be an ejection from the field for bad sportsmanship, like poor conduct. even as an accident. I mean, that is a fairly, I don't know. I don't enjoy sports ball. I would much rather hit things with swords.
For the gorillas, unmentionables. Hey, don't judge. This is war. The rest would have to use their combined strength to pin the primate down, with the remainder delivering kicks to the gorilla's flank, the most powerful natural attack to the gorilla's most vulnerable area. That would probably be the best way to chip away at a gorilla. One problem though, this is still a gorilla we're talking about. Even with everything I said about their strength being overrated, a gorilla fighting for its life would show you destruction like you've never seen. It doesn't matter how many men, the method, or the facet, for those first few, their only outcome is a closed casket. Even if numbers eventually win, those first dozen or so men would be horrifically maimed, mutilated, or straight up murked. You can argue that if I can mention that 100 men running over the hill would intimidate even a gorilla, witnessing men getting mauled and disfigured would inflict psychological damage. There's an argument that witnessing the sheer carnage would weaken the resolve of the others, destabilizing the army. And you have to remember, if mobbing is natural, doing so in a way that guarantees a portion of your team sees Tupac live isn't. Even animals like hyenas will fall back if they sense they don't have enough of an advantage in a clan fight. But there's a catch. The tweet that started all this said, "Dedicated to that shit. Surely if men can watch bunkmates get blown to bits in a war, then you can find 100 willing to die by the gorilla. If they can withstand the visceral reaction of seeing jaws getting detached, limbs getting dislocated, and a field of open fractures, 100 men would definitely beat a gorilla." And moral of the story, we have strayed so far from the halo of Harambe. Yeah, this is the part where I do the annoying thing and turn a tweet made by someone who definitely wouldn't pass a P-test into a lecture. But like I said in the other video, gorillas have already been getting the middle finger from humanity, either in the wild or in zoos. Whether it's trophy hunting or bushmeat, habitat loss, or an unsupervised minor, humans have the highest KD ratio against our green machine cousins. Because a gorilla has never been on record life depriving a person, even when they may have had a reason. Yet the mountain gorilla is nearly in bed with extinction mostly because of humans.
Yeah.
But not all humans. Some dedicate their entire lives to the welfare of this giga ape, which is why I will be donating to Virunga National Park. Not only do they treat and protect the gorillas there as family, they often have to risk their lives regularly going against poachers. That and the fact that I made a video detailing how to murk an endangered species makes my soul itch, so link down below if you'd like to donate as well. I'm not kidding when I say they're family. This man was seen comforting one of his young gorillas after his mother died. And fun fact, Virunga National is where we got this gem. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. Fun little video that nobody should take seriously. Nah, but I think I'm gonna start doing the animal versus animal face-off videos again, so let me know what animal matchup you'd like to see me yap about. There's one I've been wanting to get into for a while. Friendly reminder that I have a book, 100 Animals That'll Bleeping End You. I'd say more, but the name's no marketing. Also, I have a Patreon, but reminder that your money's probably just gonna buy me lunch, so don't spend a check unless you've always wanted to indirectly feed me Wendy's. Or you might just fund my next trip. I mean, all this talk about gorillas, who knows, maybe I'll go see one. Oh shit. But yeah, drink water, hug your mother. Please don't gang up on a gorilla, they've been through enough. And I'ma see y'all in the next one.
I mean, consider me convinced. I mean... It's one thing to hear opinion pieces, it's another to see facts and logic kind of thrown at you, right? And really just to kind of intake that and to really work with it, right? So yeah, I mean, consider me convinced. I mean, I showed my bias at the beginning of the video. We had science, facts, stuff thrown at us, and ultimately at the end of the day, I think that yeah, I think that the conclusion makes sense. I think that I'll modify my own answer to that. But that's the power of one, having a platform in which you're transparent, you're known for being having arguments and giving information in good faith. Two, that just because someone online says it doesn't necessarily make it true. Why is it true? And I think this is a perfect encapsulation of that. But thank you everyone for watching, and thank you Casual Geographic for such an amazing and enlightening video. Really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next one.